We're tired of being unemployed and underemployed. We are tired of only having to engage in sex work. We are tired of being your outreach people and your peer navigators making $10 to $12 an hour. We are tired of fighting for our country on foreign soil and then being told that we are no longer fit to serve. We are tired of our murders going without any justice and our murderers out there free. We want to be free. And that's why we are here.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome. I hope everyone's doing great as you're watching from wherever you are. And thank you for joining us tonight for this panel discussion, No Lives Left Behind, a discussion on visibility, inclusivity, and why am I forgetting the title of my own event? Yeah, it's late at night, y'all. But anywho, this is No Lives Left Behind panel discussion, okay? But anywho, we're here tonight joined by some really awesome activists, advocates, and individuals who are doing work with the trans and gender nonconforming community to have a discussion about inclusivity, visibility, as well as harm reduction in the New York City area, and to really look at the ways in which allies and other community members can be of support and can uplift trans and gender nonconforming community members as well. Right now, I just want to say thank you. We're here in honor of the National Trans Visibility March. I want to say a big thank you to TD Bank for sponsoring this year's events. I want to give a huge shout out to One Orlando's Alliance, who are going to be sponsoring and hosting the event in Orlando, Florida this year, the main rally and march. Again, the National Trans Visibility March started in 2020 in DC, and this year is continuing in Orlando with satellite events in New York City, in Sacramento, in Atlanta, and also Chicago. So big shout out to those cities as well who've been doing their own events this week, and we look forward to continuing the work. Again, please join us on October the 9th at 1 p.m. for the National Trans Visibility March. It'll be streamed live on the National Trans Visibility March's Facebook page, and you can also look it up on www.nationaltransmarch.com/live. I'm going to dive right in, but first I want to introduce our panelists. First and foremost, from Destination Tomorrow, the founder and executive director, Sean Ebony Coleman, Destination Tomorrow, the Bronx LGBTQ Center. And then the CEO, executive director of Trans New York, Dr. Jennifer Jen Hurley, and then also the founder and CEO of Trans Equity Consulting, Cecilia Gentili. Thank you. And I want to jump right on in, and you all can remind us of your pronouns as you speak. And also you can say anything else that you would like about your organization with the first question that we're going to have, which is, how does your organization or establishment work to support and or increase visibility of TGNC, GNB individuals, that's trans, gender nonconforming / gender non-binary individuals and communities? And we can start off with Jen.
Okay, thank you, Mimi. Quite an introduction. So anyway, Trans New York, we have a three-legged stool focus to support our community. The first leg is counseling. That's what I have my degree in, a PhD in psychology, in which we help individuals, families, groups who are dealing with any gender identity issues. We do this by really creating a mirror and having our clients say everything and helping people create a plan, whatever that plan be, and coming out or getting a job or so be it. The second part of our stool, second leg that is corporate training. We embarked on this just about a year ago. It's been very successful. We have clients like, we just did a training with the Ad Council. We have Northwell as well coming up. And it's really a fabulous way to get visibility out there. The only folks who are going to be doing the training are people who are under the trans umbrella. So as we grow and we add people, hopefully, we'll be adding more trainers and they will all be members of our community. And I think that really helps, educate, which is so important in terms of visibility. And our third leg, which we're embarking on in November, is our workforce development program. So we're working with Queens, the borough of Queens, where we're going to have 20 individuals complete a 10-week training course that will cover items like life skills, resume writing, technology skills, interviewing, dressing for success, and more. Hopefully, all of these will lead to internships within government in Queens. So it's something new that we're embarking on. I'm very excited to talk about that and announce that. So it's very important. So that's what we do over at Trans New York. By the way, my pronouns, which I did not put up here, are she, her, and hers.
Thank you. Cecilia?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I'm so excited to be here with all of you. And thank you, Mimi, for leading this event. You're doing a fabulous job. So thank you for having us all. So yeah, my name is Cecilia Gentili, and I use gender pronouns she and her. And I have a company. I have a private company. It's a corporation. And I work with about 10 people that work with me. We are all trans and gender non-binary. It's not like I discriminate against these people. I just happen to find the most amazing trans people to work with. And we do a whole bunch of things. We have clients that are the government, for example. We have clients that are nonprofits. And we also have clients that are other corporations. With the government, for example, we work with the federal government, with the CDC. In the state level, we work with the AIDS Institute. In the city, we work with the Department of Health. When it comes to our nonprofit clients, we work with nonprofits from all around the country in different things. And with corporations, we do a lot of work with different brands for specific needs that they have. Some of the things that we do that we are most known for is like we do a lot of workshops and trainings that continues to be something that is very, very important in our work. And we have trained more than 5,000 people since we started. And another thing that we do is the organizational development and campaign strategy. We work as facilitators to support organizations into their internal commitment to equity and introduce an idea of gender equity that has a trans lens, right? Sometimes when we think about gender equity, the first thing that comes to mind is a cisgender woman, right? And I think like we have not been looking at gender equity with a trans lens, and that's what we do, right? We work with organizations and their development and with a gender equity lens. I'm also a registered lobbyist, and I do lobbying for different different clients, and I do lobbying for financial resources and for legislations that are important to the community. I do also a lot of speaking engagements, and I'm also a storyteller, so I do a lot of work around storytelling and things like that. Another thing that is super fun to do and that we do a lot is we plan events, right? So organization says like, hey, we want to do a retreat, or we want to do a virtual gathering, or we want to just get together and celebrate community. So we organize in-person or virtual events and convenings, and we plan everything from nothing to the end, everything that has to do with the actual event. That's something that we do a lot, and something that we have been getting better and better at, and is we have found more and more work around. Unfortunately for our clients, and fortunately for us, because we make money with it, is that we do conflict mediation. We work with people inside organizations that have conflict between them, or people in the outside, in between organizations that have conflict between them. And we do a lot of mediations, and we try to get people in the same page, and to have more respectful interactions. So those are the things that we do the most. And we basically, you know, I used to be a sex worker, so whatever you want me to do for money, I'll do it.
Yes, and we're here for it. We're so here for it.
I love that.
Sir Sean Ebony Coleman, you're up next. And before you go, I want to let everyone know, if you have questions or comments, you can add them to the comment box now. That's going to be open. So we'll save a little time at the end for that. Then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sean Ebony Coleman.
Yeah, Cecilia just took me out, but she always does. I'm Sean Ebony Coleman. I'm the founder and executive director at Destination Tomorrow, the Bronx LGBT Center. One of the things that we do to increase or stay visible is we've opened up shop in one of the roughest boroughs, or one of the roughest neighborhoods in New York City. And we did it on purpose, right? We wanted folks to recognize that we're here, we're friendly neighbors, but they can come in and get to know us, right? So we run a community center that is exclusively for TGL people, but we don't exclude anyone. Our main focus is direct service, right? So we do job readiness, financial literacy, professional development, HIV testing, prep screenings, medical and mental health referrals. But our programs are like designed based on consumer or client input, right? What our clients need. One of the programs that grew from the clients was housing, and so we operate a program called a Switch program. And the Switch program is a 90-day emergency housing program for trans and gender nonconforming, non-binary, former or current sex workers. So again, increasing visibility for our community, but also showing that sex work is work, and that it's important work, and that it needs to be supported, and that our community members and any community members that participate in that line of work need to be supported, and they need safe, affordable housing as well. So our goal is to help them, our clients, find housing. In addition, Destination Tomorrow is the grant manager for the Transcend Community Impact Fund. And what that means is we were given the honor and privilege of identifying trans-led, trans-affirming national organizations to re-gift money to, right? So the funding was anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000, and our goal again was to increase visibility, to find those areas, whether they were rural areas or suburban areas or urban areas, that had these unsung heroes, because we all know them. They are actually doing the work, but weren't as organized to be able to receive funding, right? So these larger organizations would do the work. All that meant was they would get the grant, and then they would go and for pennies, they would farm it out to other trans organizations. So our goal was to find these organizations and find these folks, that these trans leaders that were actually doing the work, and give them the support that they would need to help build the infrastructure and the sustainability so that they can now represent their communities. As Sean Ebony Coleman, I do consulting as well. And one of the things that I most love is that I get to tell corporations and brands what to do, right? You want to engage the community, but you don't necessarily know how to do it. So you pop a rainbow flag, and now some of them will put a trans flag on things. During June gets on my nerves, but during June, they'll pop a flag on just about anything, on socks and mugs and whatever else, and then there's no engagement any other time. So my goal is to make sure that they understand that trans and gender nonconforming, non-binary folks exist throughout the year, and that there needs to be a 365-day strategy for engagement and making sure that they understand it if you're going to market to us what that actually looks like. So yeah, those are some of the things that we do up in the Boogie Down to increase visibility for my kinfolk.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And I, as my boss, my executive director was speaking, I realized I forgot to even introduce who I am and what I do in terms of my title. I did say it's from Destination Tomorrow, the Bronx LGBT Center. I am the director of trans initiatives here, trans services. And I am a person who, Sean is the program director or the grant director for Gilead. I am the person who manages the cycle as well as the cohort for our Gilead transcendees, transcend grantees. So, I set up the review process. We get a blind review. I help to really engage the cohort through our last two cohorts, one being 2020 to 2021, the current one being the 2021 to 2022 cohort and grant for their grant cycle. In addition to helping to manage that grant and to organize the cohort and the review and grant cycles, I facilitate a girls group here at work for trans women and cis women who are wanting to talk about the common experiences of their womanhood and using that as a peer support discussion space. That's on Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. and we do that virtually. And then in addition to that, I help with some of the hiring practices here, particularly onboarding and making sure that those who are candidates and those who are coming on board are TLGBTQ sensitive, and that they are qualified as well in general. So that, and then I get involved in writing projects here and there. So also anything that Mr. Coleman wants me to do. So we're there. That's what I do. that's my work. And I just co-sign everything that Mr. Coleman said in terms of the work that we do here at DT. And that leads to my second question, which is, for you all, what are the ways that trans and gender non-binary or gender non-conforming folks can be visible while also protecting their emotional and physical well-being? This question for me, it has been very important as I have started my transition. I really started transitioning in 2018. I am more recently doing my hormone replacement therapy. And so things have been very different in terms of how I navigate from when I was walking around the world as gender non-binary and trans feminine than when I am now presenting in ways that are more passable, quote unquote, in terms of womanhood, and visibility looks different in certain ways, right? Like I'm always a person who will have a scandal or wear a scandal when it comes to, work that I do outside of DT and, the fun that I have outside of DT. But I think I look over my shoulder a little bit more and now, especially with the deaths of trans women that have been happening in 2020 and 2021 and trans people in general, Black trans women. I would say even more with this visibility is a privilege for some. I've been very privileged to be in spaces, this job included, where I have, even if I didn't have all the support of my colleagues, I was a teacher in my past, even if I didn't have the support of my colleagues, I still had a level of protection somewhat to where I could, defend myself in terms of verbiage, in terms of understanding the law, but not everyone has access to understand what their rights are, what their freedoms are, or even know that those freedoms are available to them, or protections in New York City, I mean. And there are many states that don't have any protections and are worse, actually, as we know what's going on in Texas right now with, I believe it's HB 25. Many trans kids and trans individuals are having their own states attacking their rights at this very moment, if not having nothing on books. So I think visibility looks different in New York State and New York City to the South and the Midwest and West Coast. So that's kind of my 2 cents on visibility. I can pass this one over and start with Cecilia, if we want to start there. And then,
yeah, of course. Well, I was very lucky to be able to make a career out of being trans, right? Like basically, like my career was being trans, right? And for me, it was important at a certain point of my career to be seen as something else, right? Because I'm not just trans, when I go and lobby for money at city council, it doesn't matter that I'm trans. What matters is that I know what I'm doing, when I go to do a training, I can do a training about transness, but I can train people about anything, because I'm a good educator. So for me, being trans and being visibly trans and being able to make a career out of my transness is something that I'm grateful for. At this point in my life, in a couple of months, I'm going to be 50. I never thought I would make it out of, more than 33, 35 years old, and at this point in my life, I am looking forward to maybe have a little bit less visibility as a trans person. But sometimes that comes with the backlash that people may think that, that you are kind of like not paying enough attention in terms of community. When we do community work, sometimes the community puts so much expectation on us. And that, at this point in my life, I really want to continue doing the work that I do, but have a little bit less visibility in order to enjoy my life a little bit more. So I think like we all have an opportunity to be visible and at the same time to have to take care of ourselves, right? I have lived through, very dangerous situations where, like, because of my transness, because of I was like visibly trans, my life was at risk. But I don't want to come across as saying that, passing should be a must, right? We don't have to pass us anything. Like, I don't have to pass us anything. You don't have to pass us, and nobody has to pass us anything, right? Passing is such a myth. So I don't think like the idea of safety should be put on trans people. The idea of safety has to be put in society, over society in general, right? They are responsible for keeping us safe. It's not on us, right? It's not because you pass more you get to be safer. It's not on us. I always felt like, it's so much pressure to just perform a certain idea of the people who are going to be, how we're going to be safe. That is so important to understand that it is good to find some place where we are at peace with who we are, and it's not our responsibility to keep ourselves safe. It's the responsibility of society to provide safety for us.
Thank you. Sean?
So for me, visibility is a personal choice, right? Um, for a lot of folks, it's not even an option, depending on where they are. So I think we get the luxury or the privilege to be able to say, I can be visible, and you're going to do this for me, or you're going to do that for me, or you're going to keep me safe. While in theory, that's how it should work. As Black and brown folks, we know that those theories don't always pan out, right? So for me, being visible is more about where I am, um, physically and emotionally, and what I'm feeling in those moments, right? So, like, and maybe I'm, you know, different, but I can compartmentalize my transness and the other, right? And in some ways, to Cecilia's point, it's a bit performative, right? Because in my neighborhood, I may not be Sean Ebony Coleman, the trans advocate educator. I'm just a guy that lives on the 5th floor, and that's all they know about me. And that's all I'm going to allow them to know about me, because in those spaces, I believe that this is the only visible thing they need to see, right? And then in other spaces, I can let my hair down. You see, you got it. But I can let my hair down just a little bit and be a bit more visible, because I know in some ways, emotionally and physically, I'm gonna be okay. And I think we put a lot on physically being okay, but you need to be okay emotionally too. And I want to take the pressure off of folks for feeling like they have to be visible. You know, community will make you feel like, oh, you're ashamed of who you are because you won't tell and you don't disclose. And it's like, but that's my choice, right? And I think we need to kind of step away from like demonizing those folks that don't necessarily want to be as visible as some others are. We all have a walk, we all have a mission, and I don't know how I know how I got pushed into doing this work, but it was a calling, and it's all by design, right? But that doesn't mean it's somebody else's calling or somebody else's design. So I can't expect them to be as visible on doing commercials and talking with folks about what it means to be trans, or even being on this platform right now, having this discussion, because it may not be their calling, right? And it may not be their walk. And we still need to figure out a way how we make just the world a safer place for all of those folks that decide they want to be visible. It is up to us to, even though sometimes it feels like it's in vain, to have these discussions with Texas lawmakers and make sure they understand why it's important for them to protect trans kids, like that kind of stuff, even though in ways we're putting ourselves at risk or in danger.
Jen?
Hi there. You know, Facebook land out there. I don't know about everyone watching, but I am certainly enjoying listening to you three. That's for sure. So, you know, I was listening to what everybody was talking about with visibility, and Mimi, it's interesting. I think we're kindred spirits. We came out at the same time. So for me, it's only 3 years or 3+ years. So I hear what you're saying, you know, and I think my experience is much different than everyone speaking. I mean, first and foremost, I lived on Long Island for most of my life. I happened to be white. I also happened, you know, I was middle class. It was a much different experience from I listened to people, I talked to people. I feel extremely grateful for the life I've been afforded to be able to come out at. I'm 59. I know I'm the elder here. I knew I was. So I'm 59, and you know, to come out at a late age, to form Trans New York in such a period of time, do what I've been doing, been afforded to do that. I think some of my privilege has allowed me to do that, and I recognize that. But I agree with a lot of what everybody said. I think too often the community pushes people to feel they have to be visible, and you don't have to do anything. You can be who you want to be. And just like, the idea about passing, it's one of the reasons why I love non-binary and non-conforming, right? It sort of blows up gender. I like the idea of blowing up gender, where we're not all sort of confined into being a certain way. So, it was a very strange experience because, being on Long Island, was kind of a conservative area. And yet I was fortunate enough never really to have, a safety issue. I never really felt unsafe that way. Now, when I go out, um, at times I might feel a little, but I generally don't get those feelings that much. And that's, that's sort of sad in many ways that it's like that. And that's something that I know we have a lot of questions that we'll keep talking through. But I think with visibility, you want to be visible, wonderful. I'm going to continue to be visible till my last breath because I have a lot of time to make up for. So I came out late. I want to make the most of my time. So back to you, Mimi.
For sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Three. Thank you. This next question is specific to like New York City as a very unique place, geographically speaking. For those who know anything about New York City, it's divided into 5 boroughs or tiny islands, areas, and each borough has multiple populations, ethnicities, demographics in terms of income and age group and safety level as well. And so one of the things that I'm interested in asking everyone is, how does a community's borough location impact their visibility and safety? That being Queens, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and the Bronx, the Boogie Down. No, I didn't forget us. I just had a, slip of the mind for a second. I got us though. I'm here in the Boogie Down.
I'm in between boroughs. I just moved. I went from being a Queens girl to being a Brooklyn girl. So I don't know how to feel about it. I am, learning how to, say prosciutto without the O, because here in Brooklyn is prosciutto. It's not prosciutto, it's prosciutto. So I'm learning to put my hand like this when I talk. What are you talking about? I'm learning my whole Brooklyn vibe. It's a hard change. I was, Queens is like the home of Latinas. For me, it's like, most of my community in Queens was like Latinas, Latinx people, right? But most of my friends were Latinas, trans women, but here in Brooklyn, I am just trying to find what the vibe is. I move, with my partner and we live in an area called Marine Park, which is like very white and very conservative. My partner made fun when the first week that I moved here. He's like, the neighbors don't know what to do with themselves. You move in and next door, they move a whole Black family. So the neighbor didn't know what to do with themselves. We have a trans woman and a Black family. What's going on?
It's literally gentrification is the vibe of Brooklyn. And the reason you can't tell is because it's like people are fighting for their last breath here, trying to keep the color, trying to keep the queer. I live in Greenpoint, so white.
Very white, very bougie. So I am trying to get a sense of what Brooklyn is about. I don't, I can talk from my experience in Queens. I think that Queens is definitely a place with, that is multicultural. Like that's the beauty of Queens. And I think also, I have to give it to my community. I think when it comes to the trans community, Queens is being, the ones holding, the space are the trans Latinas and the trans Latinx community. But it's a very multicultural space. So I let you know how Brooklyn, how I find Brooklyn in a year or two. But they're gonna have to get used to me. I'm not going nowhere. They get used to me.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. Thank you, Cecilia. Jen, tell us about your experiences, and then we'll go with Sean.
Well, I was gonna chime in with Cecilia because I'm gonna need her help because I'm new in Queens. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm from Long Island. That's where I've always been from, and I moved to Queens. Oh, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. So I'm trying to get the vibe of Queens, Cecilia. So it's a learning experience for me. But I did mention before, because I think it is important when we're talking about visibility and safety, that it's it is really culture, environment, all really play a part in people's process in being safe and being visible. And people have to make decisions based upon where they are, and some people feel less safe than others, and I remember prior to coming out, I was listening to you, Mimi, when I was almost out, and I would go out, and I was so frightened as a person, but it wasn't really real. That was an internal fright. That's different than someone feeling threatened with their safety. So I think that at times people have a feeling inside that they're being threatened, and then they should really take a lot of caution, right? And I think everybody should take caution. I think people should go out with somebody else. I don't think you should really go alone. I would really refrain from alcohol, and everybody likes to drink now and then, but brings about bad decisions, poor decision making. You don't want to end up in a place where you're not supposed to be. That's how things happen. So but then that's my experience being on Long Island, being in Queens. It's been great for me so far. I love Queens. I love the fact that it's so diverse. I don't know if I shared with everybody before, but I do a little adjunct teaching over at John Jay University. So I teach sociology. So I'm learning every day. So every day when you were from one place where it was earlier, as I said, being a middle class white person, Long Island, being exposed to all this, I'm continuing to learn and adjust as I'm learning. So
Thank you, Sean.
I'm gonna jump around when I answer this question. Okay, so Bronx here, the one, the borough. Miss Mimi almost forgot. The Bronx. So I've been doing work. I've been like organizing in the Bronx for about 15 years now, maybe a little longer. And what struck me initially is how it wasn't perceived as a borough that would be receptive to queer people, right? And it took some work with community. It took some work with politicians to make sure that the Bronx was a safe, affirming space. That didn't mean that things didn't happen in the Bronx. It meant that we had the support of the electeds, if you will, when things happen. But that took a long time to get to. It almost feels like the Bronx is shifting back to some of those behaviors and some of those feelings, right? Like even now, I walk through the neighborhood, and we're like right on 149th and 3rd Avenue, and you just see a lot of activity. And it's not activity that'll make you unsafe because you're trans. It's just activity that'll make you unsafe, right? So there's that. I think we in some ways have to separate that, like the borough's location and our proximity to poverty and those socioeconomic issues that are not being addressed in the borough while gentrification is happening, right? So you have one side of town where they have all of these bars that they're opening up and they do salsa dancing on the weekend, and the other side of the Bronx that you have to walk through those folks that are actually using in the street. And it's this clash that unfortunately feels in some ways is gonna erupt because it doesn't have anything else to do because it's not being addressed. So that's so there's that. Nothing to do with transness, but safety overall. I do. We have a discussion in a couple of, I think we said it twice already, about allies, right? And I really hate that word. And the reason I hate that word is because you have all these self-proclaimed allies, right? So all I want to say tonight is you're not an ally unless we tell you you are, right? And an ally is one who makes space for what others need. So if you're leading or attempting to lead a movement, you're not an ally. You're taking up space. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. I'm going to actually come to you first then with the next question. But primarily, I will say, yeah, I agree. You know, as a person, in terms of the boroughs, I'm from Virginia originally, then lived in Philadelphia when I was getting my master's degree. And then when I came to the city 4 years ago, I was living in Washington Heights, like Dominican Washington Heights, or Little.
Come through, master's degrees. Come through.
I gotta let them know. Look,
yes,
yes,
honey.
The government paid a lot of money for that degree, so I gotta put the credentials out there. And then I worked as a middle school English teacher in Riverdale, in North Bronx area, which was very gentrified and white and affluent. And I then went from there to Brooklyn and Greenpoint and working in the South Bronx at Destination Tomorrow. And I've spent time a lot in downtown Manhattan. So I've really experienced a lot of places, a little bit of Queens, but mostly those three boroughs. And I think the one thing that I've noticed as a person who has been a person coming into the city and not being born and raised here is just how much disparity there is, even within a borough, from block to block, and then from borough to borough, and who receives funding in terms of LGBTQ funding or who doesn't receive funding within our networks, who, where my experiences of intersectionality come into play more. So for instance, when I'm in Brooklyn, you know, yeah, my transness is more quickly and readily accepted than my being Black. I'm often looked at and very much, and you wouldn't even think, but I'm often stared at very much by white men on the street. And I'm like, is that person looking at me because I'm attractive or because I'm Black? And it's most likely the latter. Then there's also the element of Manhattan and the Upper East Side that I've always gotten looks there, especially at the start of my transition, for both reasons. I would say, again, because I'm Black. So I think there's a lot of ways in which the intersections of my identity come into play when it comes to visibility. Same with other folks. And I agree with what Sean said. It's not often about areas being unsafe because of transness. It's often because of economic and social disparity. And that has been going on in this city a long time, historically speaking. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Sean, to your point about allies, you know, I have used in the past the word accomplices, people who are willing to actually lay something down, give up some privilege instead of allyship, because accompliship is a little bit more. It's a person who's willing to take that knee rather than that person who, or to put something on the line and give up something rather than just an ally who doesn't have a lot of skin in the game. But my question about allyship is, we see all of this visibility and all of this advertising, and you know, as you talked about in June and Pride Month, of performative allyship. But I want to know more about how can institutions and policymakers and accomplices be accountable for reducing mental, emotional, social, and physical harm toward trans people? We can start with you, Sean, and then we can go to Jen.
Hire trans people. No, I'm just joking.
But
I'm not, right? Hiring trans people is probably one of the easiest ways and most effective ways to address all of the things, mental health, emotional, social, all of it. The other thing is allowing us to tell our own stories, right? You can't create my narrative. You can't change my narrative. You can't lead my narrative. And too often they want to tell us what they want from us, right? For pennies. And then the other thing is to make sure that it's equitable, whatever we're looking to do that is equitable. If you walk into the room and it's the same people in the room and the room is not diverse, then you need to bring new people into the room, period. An ally is going to make sure that the necessary voices are around that table, especially when it's decision making around funding and policy and those kinds of things. That's what an ally or an accomplice is going to do, right? They're not threatened by your presence. They actually know that your presence enhances their work and the work of that group. So I think those are the two primary things for us. As trans leaders, what I'm going to say is we got to shake it up a little bit, right? We need more of us running for office. We need more of us in leadership roles. We need, and let's just keep it a buck. And I love, I love New York. I really do. But you figure, and in New York City, we had the most diverse city council, right? A lot of them are getting ready to shift out, but we had the most diverse city council. Black and brown folks, progressive folks, LGBTQ folks. One would assume that there would be more Black and brown leadership in the non-for-profit space. Queer non-for-profit spaces, one would assume that there would be more Black and brown leaders or leaderships, and that they would have robustly funded more Black and brown LGBTQ organizations, and that didn't necessarily happen, right? And it's because while they may know us, they don't necessarily understand us, and they can't speak to what the needs are. They can't speak to how important it is to take those programs that are operating on a shoestring budget that started as maybe a street worker project or whatever, and take those programs and give them the resources that they need to grow. They automatically look for those bright, shiny objects when they really should be like dusting some stuff off. Like I like to say, I got it out the mud. So if it's coming up out the mud, help me dust that off and make it shine bright and pretty as well. And I think to my point is, we need to be around that table. We need to be in city council making some of these funding decisions. That way we know that our folks are going to be taken care of. So I think, and I think a true ally is going to give us the tools necessary, right? Because none of us has run for office before. So there's someone there that can teach us how to do that. There's someone there that can mentor us. So reach back and do mentorships. And it doesn't even have to be this spoken thing. You don't have to announce to everybody, hey, I'm Sean's political consultant and we're going to do. No, let's just get in and let's just do the work. And then when I pop up in city council, I can say, and I want to give a shout out to my mentor. You know what I'm saying? But let's just get in and get the work done. And I think we need more work happening and less posturing for my allies.
Thank you. Dr. Chen and then Cecilia.
Yeah, I would say, all of us are doing some sort of consulting with corporations, and a very good friend of mine, he always says to me that the LGBT organizations get the crumbs when it comes to funding, and I would say a little past that, when it comes to that, trans organizations get the crumbs of the crumbs, right? And when we think about corporations and doing training, all of us here do it, right? We've done it to some extent. How many companies we've talked to, how many companies have told us yes, 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 how many companies never have come through, right? Companies need to be educated on all of these issues, and most of them are not. And even since gender passed, GENDA, right, in 2019, you would think more corporations would step up and want to get trained, and they need the training. They absolutely need the training. They have a chance of losing a valuable workforce. The next CEO could be a trans, non-binary, non-conforming person, but yet, as Sean pointed out, they are not willing to spend the money. And it's unfortunate, and it really needs to change.
I am, I don't know how to put this in a way that is not offensive to corporations, but I'm gonna say it. I get requests from corporations that manage millions of dollars, billions of dollars actually, to do presentations for free. And I'm like, if I want to buy one of your pots or one of your kitchen appliances, it cost me more than $1,000, and you asking me to do a speech for free to your LGBTQ group, and for me, I'm from the streets. You may get an email back that says "fuck you." I'm not doing that shit. It's very easy. So? I think that we have to redefine allyship. I think that people got too comfortable with the idea of an ally. Oh, I have a trans flag in my house in Connecticut. I put a trans flag in my Fire Island summer home. That doesn't make you an ally, and it goes for cis people, and it goes for straight people, and it goes for gay people too, right? I think like everybody got very comfortable with the idea of like, I'm an ally. I put a post in my Instagram for Trans Day of Remembrance. That's not being an ally. That's just being part of life. I think being an ally is like kind of understanding what do you need from me. Is an ally don't tell you what they're gonna do for you. A real ally asks you what you need from them, right? And like Sean was talking, like I have one of the people that I know that I understand as one of my best ally was a person who didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and decided to take me to city council and taught me how government moves and how government works, and and empower me to just create a coalition and and empower my peers. And I remember with Sean, it was like 4 years ago that that we went to city council asking for money, and people were looking at us like we were crazy. But it all came because a cis white gay man told me like, you can do it, Cecilia, do it. Tell me what you need. And I was like, okay, can I get this? Can I get these meetings here? Can I get this meeting there? And this person helped me so much. It's one of my very good friends, who was there all the way, right? And didn't even do a post about it, saying like, hey, I helped these people get $4 million, right? Didn't even put it in an Instagram post, like you don't know that he was behind it, but that's what a real ally do, right? That's it's not about how much you're gonna get from being my ally, is how much you're gonna do for a person like me. So I think that we really need to make an effort to redefine the word allyship, because people get too comfortable. Like, you wearing a pin that say it gets better doesn't make it better for anybody, right? Great that you have your it gets better pin. For some of us, it doesn't get better, because you have a pin that says that it gets better. That's the reality of it. So I invite everybody to kind of like redefine the word allyship before they use it, because people have a tendency to use it too comfortably.
And can I just say, I and Cecilia and Jen, this has been amazing. I love you both deeply. So being able to share space with you tonight was awesome. So thank you, and thank you for your insight. I always learn when I talk to you both. The only thing that I want to say, the last thing I want to say is I'm going to encourage all of our trans siblings to come up with a fee schedule, right? So the next time someone reaches out and asks you to speak, you automatically know what it's going to cost. There's not a doubt in your mind that you're not going to ask for some money. And the minute they ask you to speak, you simply send them your invoice that has that predetermined amount on your fee schedule, and they'll get in the habit eventually of understanding that regardless of who they speak to in this community, there's going to be a price.
Thank you. Exactly. Exactly. The only thing I would add to everything you all said, because you hit the nail on the hammer with the nail, you know that saying. But all I would add to that is to say, stay off of trans people's bodies and recognize that we are not a political platform. We're not a quota. We're not a business venture. We're not a prop for your friendship circle or your acquaintance circle. We are whole human beings with whole identities. And I think so much and so often when we are in spaces and places, a lot of people are invested in asking questions about how the transition is going. Are you getting the bottom surgery? Are you getting the top surgery? Are you doing facial feminizations? It's like all of that stuff, like, have you changed your name? All of those things are my journey. And if I choose to share that, that's something that I share. But realize I have my own hopes, my own desires, my own dreams, things that break my heart, things that make me joyous, things that, that I can be wrong about, that I can be right about. So invest in understanding us as human beings rather than just understanding us in reference to our bodies and what bathroom we're using, which is not to say those things aren't important when it comes to making sure our freedoms and our visibility is protected. It's to rather say we are human beings who have desires and dreams. We have about 5 minutes left, so I want to be able to take any comments or questions from those in the audience, if you have them right now. If not, then I'm going to ask our participants one more question before we leave. So I'll give us like 30 seconds, see if anyone asks questions. Doesn't look like anyone's going or typing away. If they do, then I'll interrupt us. But I will say thank you so much to you all again for being on this panel and for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. Like Sean said, I too I learned so much being in space with you all. Thank you, Monica Rodriguez, for the thank you. Thank you, Kim Watson. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you all for the things you've said and the comments you shared. Dr. Jen, did you want to add something?
No, I just want to add, it's been a pleasure being here with everybody, and Mimi, working with you with, organizing all these events was great. And of course, Sean and Cecilia. Cecilia's going to be my mentor in Queens now. She doesn't know that, but she is. So I'll be sending you an email later. So, but truly, I think what we talked about at the end really was something that needed to be said. And, I may be the oldest, but I certainly am not the person who's been doing this the longest. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that both Sean and Cecilia, you two have been at it a long time. And I give you a lot of credit. It takes a lot of staying power to do what you're doing. So bless you both.
I would just say for the final question, really, or thing, can you offer, we have a lot of protections and freedoms here in New York State and New York City, even when we don't have them, right? There's a lot of opportunity to fight for them, but there's not a lot of people, not a lot of states in certain areas of the country have that kind of access. Is there any kind of final word you would add to talk about what organizers or people can do in states that don't have those protections? Any kind of words of advice or wisdom quickly?
I think like, putting trust on trans people, giving trans people opportunities, like we do the work, like, we have changed laws in the state of New York. We have changed laws in the city of New York. I work, with the Senate on passing the Equality Act. We do the work. What we need to do is just trust trans people, believe trans people, help them, because we do the work. Like, if you are a trans person, you are going to be the best worker that anybody will hire, because being trans is such a hard work, So if for people who transition, can do any kind of job. If you transition, you are the best worker in the world, because it's it's hard. So I just want to say, like, invest in trans people, invest in trans people. We are a community that is so vibrant. Like, I love spending time with all of you, and like, I have known Sean for so many years, and like, it's such a joy to see him being, the badass, uh, amazing leader that he is, and so it's such a joy to see my community thrive, and we are doing it. We just need to be given the opportunities to do so.
I didn't pay her to say that, so thank you, Cecilia. I love you to pieces. But I learned from you. I watch you, how resilient you are, and especially when we were trying to get the money from the city council, and you just kept showing up, and you wouldn't let us stop showing up. And when we got discouraged, she was like, "We gotta get this money," and it was like, "Yes, we are," because Cecilia is determined. And just thank you for your guidance, for your leadership, and for always putting community first. That's you're just such a genuine person. I appreciate you.
Dr. Jen, any final words?
Well, I would just say to everyone who's trans out there, invest in yourself if you can. Get some, get a mentor, mental health professional, whatever it takes, because there's no more important person than you. And lastly, to Mr. Sean Coleman. So, Sean, I still appreciate the day you and I ate breakfast, and I was telling you my woes about the conference and what I thought was going to happen. And one of the things you said to me was, "Jen, that can't happen to you. We need you to stay around and service people." So that really stuck with me. I really did appreciate what you said to me that day.
And I was sincere, because I recognized what you were bringing to the table, that you were definitely going to be one that was going to come and shake it up a bit, and you have. So thank you.
I'll just add that as a person who comes from a small rural town in the South, in Virginia, who experienced racism there, homophobia, transphobia, and also who saw things as a lot more hopeless, I would tell people like myself, continue to push, continue to find community with those who are like-minded, even if that community is just between you all, right? And is not shared with others, right? Navigate how you need to navigate, live how you need to live. Your transness and your sexuality are not validated by your visibility, right? So what you have to do to stay safe has nothing to do with how you identify and who you are, and how you show up and share space with those who are most trusted. And I would also add that, again, just like Cecilia said, we do change laws. We do the brave work. So I would say, if you are a person who is in a state that doesn't have certain protections, or is struggling to set up an LGBT center or to do trans advocacy work, keep the faith, keep moving, keep being brave, rest, and take care of yourself. Make sure that the work doesn't overwhelm and overpower you, and find love and community and space where you can. And if you need to, get out of there, if you can, right? It was a privilege for me to be able to navigate and to move out and to get out. But if you can, go elsewhere until you can find that self that you want, right? But I'm an advocate for community. So as much as possible, stay and make change where you are, and also don't do it alone. Right. So those are my last words. And I just want to thank you all again, Dr. Jen, Cecilia, Mr. Coleman, Sean Ebony Coleman. Thank you all so much for your time, for your words, for your wisdom. Thank you for joining us for this panel discussion, everyone watching from wherever you are, on your phone, on your tablet, on your technical device. Thank you for joining us for this discussion. And I just want to remind everyone that, again, Saturday, October the 9th at 1 o'clock. From 1 to 3:30 is going to be the National Trans Visibility March live streams. We will have streaming events in satellite cities in New York, our events that Trans New York and DT have been coordinating, Sacramento, in Chicago, and also in Atlanta. And I would like to thank and give a huge shout out to One Orlando Alliance, who will be hosting the in-person rally and march this year. I look forward to seeing you all at least during the stream on Saturday. Again, take care, have a good night. Thank you to our panelists, and until I'll see you soon.
We are here because we're tired of being unemployed and underemployed. We are tired of only having to engage in sex work. We are tired of being your outreach people and your peer navigators making $10 to $12 an hour. We are tired of fighting for our country on foreign soil and then being told that we are no longer fit to serve. We are tired of our murders going without any justice and our murderers out there free. We want to be free. And that's why we are here.